Nothing has changed. Everybody's gleefully asleep at the wheel, waiting for somebody to come and save them. And yeah, well, if you're not new, then you know that's not going to happen. Excuse me, guys. Just finished running in this weird weather out here, so my throat's a little meh. But yeah, we're going to go over what I think is a very telling article from The Economist. Um, they broadcast what they're going to do. They don't hide anything. This is why I take the stance that I take, and I pretty much stand alone. Don't really care because I can read. It's very simple. Um, the rest of the market clearly does not. So, very few people are going to be positioned properly to take advantage of what's about to happen because nobody cares, nobody's listening, everybody's waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. And the funny thing is that even if they are told, right over their head, because I've definitely told people what to do, and I know they're not doing it. I can tell just because everybody shares everything online. So it's not like I need to be guessing. Everybody's dumb. They don't know what operational security is. Everybody shares everything as if that's really a thing. You know, uh, Interestingly enough, just before we get into this economist article, for people that don't, I've been building software for about 2 years now. Uh, well, going on three. And what I've learned is that everything is literally the same. Now, what I mean by that is that you're going to have people that know how to write software. You're going to have people that don't and claim to be, software engineers. And you guys got to understand writing software is like writing a book. So even though program works, doesn't mean it's properly written. Doesn't mean you're safe on whatever application you're on. All these little things that we take for granted, we really should not, because we don't understand what we're using when it comes to software. 99% of the time, and this is why when somebody's explaining how something works, the average person is not going to even believe it because they don't really have a clue. They don't have any idea. They're not educated in any way. And they're not really trying to understand the tools that they're using. It's the same thing as, uh, uh, you know, when my dumb ass is trying to tell people that they got to understand, the financial and economic implications of why crypto and all this nonsense that I used to say, simply because I didn't understand that people have no interest in actually being educated. People just want to be told what to do and go along for the ride, and that's it. But the problem with that is that that doesn't work anymore. That works for your parents. That shit is not working for you. So, it's interesting. I've been saying this for years, and everybody in the fake ass hex community hates me, right? Because when they took their masks off, I took my mask off very quickly, right? And that started with the whole Maddie shit and all that. So I'm literally muted by like everybody, right? So nobody really has a fucking clue unless they want to see what's going on over here. So imagine you had all these people pretending to be stakers, which they turned out not to be. And then on top of that, they are not people that were about their freedom. They're people that are about being sheep. I mean, this is the majority of crypto. And, suffice it to say, that's the majority of the world. So all these applications you're using are just honeypots, literally. Doesn't matter which one it is. Doesn't matter who made it. Because if you didn't make it, you bet your bottom dollar is not secure. Because how do you know? You don't know. You don't even know how to assess anything for security unless you're, professing to be a professional in that area. And here's the thing, like in every field, even the professionals don't know what the fuck they're doing. That's why whales only exist. Because if I didn't need to exist, everybody would just watch fucking Bill Miller and motherfuckers like Warren Buffett and shit like that. And that would be the end of the story. Or not even, we can go even higher level and say Eugene Fama is the end of the fucking line and you don't even need a Warren Buffett or whatever. Right? But the reality is that that's far from the truth. To achieve any kind of greatness in any field, you got to stand alone. Right? So if you're doing anything that everybody else is doing, you're literally wrong. Period. That's why everybody is so anti-Hex, because Hex is doing actual crypto shit. Everything else, not so much. Right? Everything else has to try to mimic bullshit because people don't actually understand value. This is why people think they need a centralized exchange. This is why people think that they cannot do peer-to-peer transactions. I mean, you got to understand the whole premise of crypto is that people are able to save themselves from the system. And the reality is that that shit is never going to fucking happen. So it's a honeypot too. How can you rely on people that do not respect themselves to all of a sudden do it? Never going to happen. Pain is required for something like that to happen. And that's what's going to come now. So that's why you have to be patient. You have to be a long-term thinker. You got to be all these things that nobody wants to be in order to find success on the other side of what's about to happen. You can have all the gold and silver you want, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a period of time where economic transactions, you don't know how you're going to make them. You got no idea, because once the system gets swapped over, you don't know what your options are going to be. And let me tell you, it's going to get fucking swapped. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The only question remains is, what is it going to look like on the other side? And that's a great point in which to segue into what I want to cover in this stream. I mean, it's like always the same thing with these people. They don't hide anything. They tell you everything, and it's really on you with respect to what you want to do. Everybody has an opportunity to know what's going on. People do not like to know what's going on. People like to be ignorant and just not know or care to know. And it's not rocket science. We already lived through it in 2020. So it's not like I'm even giving an opinion. This is all certified, verified facts. Period. So it doesn't matter if you don't like it. That's just what's true. That's why we got sheeps, we got NPCs, we got all that stuff. And that's what allows the permeation of evil. It's the people that are willing to just let it happen. Because people like me are outnumbered by people like them. So how do you fight against a blob? I mean, you can't. You can't fight against a wall, right? And this is ultimately what we're doing. So since we cannot fight against a wall, the only thing you can do is to fight the source of the wall. And that's with education. So if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, they're going to tell you what to do. And you're gonna be the dumbass getting real IDs and shit like that, or paying the $45 like a schmo or whatever, whatever dumbass shit these people come up with because you don't educate yourself. I mean, this is the consistent pattern. This is not an opinion. We already saw it happen in 2020. So again, pretending to know is not the solution. Actually educating yourself is the solution, because pretending is no longer an option, because now they're in the arena and they know what they're doing. You, on the other hand, might not have a clue. And all that means is that you're not going to see the mines in the field when they're set. And, I don't know if you guys been paying attention, but I'm not sharing shit anymore because there's no point in that. So you got to really go with what is true. Because if you don't know what's true, don't worry, you're going to learn. Ain't no reason for me to threaten anybody. It's what's going to happen. So, with respect to that, let's get into. Oh man, you guys are really gonna laugh at this shit. Let's just get into this. Larry Fink and Rob Goldstein on how tokenization could transform finance. I mean, okay. Ledgers haven't been this exciting since the invention of double entry bookkeeping. Who invented that? I bet you don't know. And I bet you nobody knows. All right, moving on. And if there is a body, bet you don't know much about him. And if there is much to know about him, you already know the background. 50 years ago, I'm going to read this and then comment as I read. Because what's really going to happen is I'm just going to expose the lies as I read. That's what I do when I read this kind of shit. 50 years ago, money moved at the speed of mail. When one of us, that I guess they're the ones talking, them two guys. Larry started his career in 1976. Trades were placed over the phone and settled with paper certificates sent by courier. Now, the important thing to know about that process is that it gave the purchaser of the security actual ownership. That no longer happens. That has not happened in decades, actually. The proliferation of electronic markets has made that essentially a non-function. So if you think you own a stock in your portfolio that's been sitting there for years, the reality is that you don't own shit. How you like them apples? You just got a number on the screen, and if shit hits the fan, you don't actually have claim to anything. You are not even at the bottom of the totem pole or the top, however that shit is defined, because I can't remember anymore. With respect to creditor line, when an entity, when any entity fails and you own the stock, you're not even in the list, even though you're already last because you just own equity. So, it's shit like that the average person just doesn't have a clue about. And how can they have a clue about it? They're just going to believe whatever the fuck is said on TV because that is how it goes. That's how it's always gone. Knowing anything is faux pas, right? Being an ignoramus, dumb fuck that looks cool is what's in. But actually knowing some shit, that's a problem. And let me tell you, that shit is not race specific. That shit is species specific and specific to fucking humans. So, I love to see the shit online when people try to act like blacks and Hispanics are fucking morons. Yet I'm probably the only motherfucker on the planet that has a clue. And I'm not white, not Jewish. So that says a lot about the current state of affairs. Because a lot of people like to pretend they're superior when all you gotta do is just shut the fuck up. Nobody's superior to anybody. And in fact, if anything, everybody's a dumb fuck. Because look at the position we're all in. Because everybody thinks that there's something that they're not. So, you know, those are the facts. And again, 2020, right? I can lean on that forever. So we're just going to keep reading. And we are here. In 1977, a technology, and it's not a technology called Swift brought standardized electronic messaging between banks, cutting transaction times from days to minutes. And we've gone over Swift. That's a system that we use today to settle transactions. And, they might be able to settle transactions in minutes, but no, that's not true. Transactions still take days to settle unless they're using some type of fast settlement network. And even then, right, these securities are not being settled with the certificate, i.e., the actual asset. Like when people are buying 55 million shares of whatever the fuck, they're not getting 55 million certificates. So they don't actually own 55 million shares of anything. And that's the best kept secret in finance today. Because if people knew, they would sue. Because that's a breach of fiduciary duty. That's a breach of financial responsibility with regards to clients. And I mean, I'm telling you, billionaires don't know shit. Just because people got money does not mean that they're fucking educated about money. So we're going to continue reading. Now, finance is entering the next major evolution in market infrastructure, one that could move assets faster and more securely, which is obviously a lie, than systems that have served investors for decades. It started in 2009 when Satoshi Nakamoto, a pseudonymous developer, launched Bitcoin as a shared digital ledger that could record transactions without intermediaries. Remember how that coin and instrument has been the focus of many claims of, how can I say, derogatory behavior, right? They've always attached drug dealing and all these negative aspects of life to a technology. That's what they did for years, literally over 13 years of that, 14 years, maybe even 15. They probably stopped this year, because now it's time to pretend like they like the shit. And we're going to keep reading. A few years later, that same technology, the blockchain, sparked something even more transformative: tokenization. Oh man, you know when I read anything from The Economist, I know the people that read The Economist. People that read The Economist are a certain class of people. People that read Barron's are a certain class of people. People that read Wall Street Journal, and there's people that read everything. So the important thing to know is that there's not going to be any altcoin season. That shit is over. And it's 2025. And motherfuckers are still waiting for it. And it's the end of 2025. By now, well, you were supposed to know a year ago at this time what was going to happen. And it was obvious then. Then ain't nothing happening. Still obvious now because we're out of season. So let's say a bull run does materialize. What does that mean? Is that really a positive or is it a negative? Fact is, it's a negative because we're off the time scale of when everything is supposed to be happening. That's been the case for years at this point because everything was supposed to go down in 2024, a year ago. So where are we exactly with respect to time and price and how Bitcoin works, right? For example, because Bitcoin is a very specific tool. It's not, its pricing is very specific. It's a function of the mining power or the hash mining power required to generate a coin. So if the price is sub 90,000, now I don't know exactly where it is, but my guess is, the fuck is this thing? Let's see. Yep, sub 90,000. ETH 3,000. All right, but again, at the end of the day, total is only at 3. And it's 2025. Where is your bull run? Nowhere to be seen. There's no money coming into the market. We haven't even surpassed 5 trillion. So what's actually happening? Let's keep reading. Tokenization involves recording ownership on digital ledgers. It makes it possible for almost any asset, from real estate to corporate debt or currency, to exist on a single digital record that participants can independently verify, which I don't know why participants would want to independently verify anything. The chain exists to verify everything. So that's a play on words to make you think that something is possible or doable that isn't. You see? This is why it's imperative to actually understand what the fuck you're doing and what the fuck you're using. It's not optional because you think you're in control. But here come these motherfuckers making up shit. And you don't even know what they're making up. Because they dictate shit. You don't dictate shit. You're waiting on them to pump your bags. Literally. I see it every day on fucking Twitter. It's disgusting. A bunch of homos waiting for other homos to make them fucking rich. It's crazy as fuck. And people think they're respectable doing that shit. It's fucking crazy. It's demeaning. And that's exactly what they want y'all to do. They want you to wait for a savior to come and save you, but there is not going to be any savior. Nope. What they want is for you to sit there and wait for nothing. Because that is how they can move on you. You never increase your position of power. You stay powerless. You stay ignorant. And they stay winning. Let's continue. I mean, this is when it gets funny. Just want to make that clear. At first, it was hard for the financial world, including us, to see the big idea. Oh my God, they couldn't see it. Tokenization was tangled up in the crypto boom, which often looked like speculation. But in recent years, traditional finance has seen what was hiding beneath the hype. Tokenization can greatly expand the world of investable assets beyond the listed stocks and bonds that dominate markets today. Now, the first question that should come to your mind is how the fuck is that supposed to happen exactly? Because every asset that exists is tied to a financial value. So, what that means is those things that are on one side of the ledger cannot just disappear and go to another. I don't know if people really understand what the fuck I just said, but that's a very important accounting thing. And what that means, that's basically the whole reason Bitcoin exists is to not let them do what they're gonna do, actually, which is duplicate accounting entries and all of this basically create a a fork of the financial system. That's essentially what's about to happen. And you're gonna buy into it. Well, not you specifically, but the average person is gonna buy into it because they don't fucking know anything about money. If they knew anything about money, they wouldn't be the average person. So everybody's out here pretending like they got some information that's going to make their lives sweet and all that good shit. But in reality, they're just waiting for somebody to save them, and there is nobody that's going to save them. And all there exists out there are traps and minefields. And if you're not educated, you are going to fucking succumb to them. And people like me are just going to laugh because you're going to become homeless or worse. Because that's the goal. You're going to sit here and tell me the people that control everything, at first it was hard for the financial world, including us, to see the big idea. Yeah. Now you can see, huh? Oh, man. So let's keep reading. Tokenizing assets brings two broad benefits. First, it offers the potential to settle transactions instantaneously. Today's markets operate on different settlement timelines, exposing buyers and sellers to the risk that one side might not fulfill its obligations. That's not really true, at least the way it's written there. Every asset has its own settlement time frame, and really very few are more than a week, unless it's like a physical asset or something on a contract where it's like a 90-day settlement or some shit like that. They're all relatively quick. So that's not really true. That's a lie. And again, it's all a function of being knowledgeable and knowing what's actually true. If you don't actually know because you're not in the business, I'm in the business. I'm out here fucking making shit up, giving you guys my opinion. I don't give a fuck about my opinion. Right? And this is why everybody else that's a streamer don't like me. Because they think that their fucking little faggot ass gay opinion matters when in fact it does not. Never has, never gonna. And that's why their asses are still waiting for these little homos right here to save their little faggot asses. The whole crypto space is waiting on fucking Jews to save them. That's exactly what this is. Let's keep reading. All right. Standardizing instantaneous settlement across global markets would be a leap beyond what Swift ever made possible. Oh my God, they just discovered the internet. Wow. Crazy. Crazy. And again, I don't know exactly how this is not obvious. We're talking about people in here that these people profess to be educated in the topic, but they're out here making all the moves that make it clear that they don't have a fucking clue. Creating businesses with fucking formation documents, calling it a crypto company, all this fake ass shit. I mean, it's just pure comedy at this point because people are still waiting to get bailed out by the system. And they think that they're going to come up off of that. Now, let's ignore the fact that the currency you're chasing has been debased by 50%. Let's ignore that. Let's ignore that. All right, let's continue. Second, private market assets still rely heavily on paper. Now, I'm just going to stop right there and read that line again. Second, private market assets still rely heavily on paper, manual processes, bespoke settlements, and records that haven't kept up with the rest of finance. Now, I don't know if the word private is hard to understand nowadays, but the connotation there is implied that it's meant to be not keeping up with the rest of finance. So that's accurate. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's not incorrect. That's proper because the whole point of having a private entity is for it to be private. Literally not rocket science. So, yeah. Tokenization can replace that paper. Oh, they can replace paper with code. I guess they didn't know. Wow. Reducing the frictions that make assets costly and slow to trade. Wow. They got it all figured out, guys. Damn. They really got it all figured out. I mean, uh, you know, you guys just got to realize that this is just all narrative setting because the market is already digital. Dollars are already digital. USDC, everybody's already using that shit. USDT, everybody's already using all that shit. People do not give a fuck. They have no self respect. They don't care that they're slaves. They're perfectly okay with being homos. Perfectly okay with it. There's no, like, at this point in my life, everybody's just getting retarded because they're okay chasing fake money. That's just where we're at. These guys right here on the screen, they're doing what they can get away with. I'm not even mad at them anymore because why not? Why not? You tell me why not when nobody literally gives a fuck. Why not? There's literally no reason for them not to. Moving on. I mean, listen to this dumbass shit. I'm gonna just read this shit again. We're talking about private assets, okay? Private, not public. Private market assets still rely heavily on paper, manual processes, bespoke settlements, and records that haven't kept up with the rest of finance. That's literally the point. It's for it to be private and not public so that people cannot know. Tokenization can replace paper with code, reducing the frictions that make assets costly and slow to trade. Again, literally the point. It can turn large unlisted holdings, such as real estate or infrastructure, into smaller, more accessible units, broadening participation in markets long dominated by large institutions. So you see the hijack and how they're trying to claim the democratization of finance when we all know, at least those of us that are educated, that this is a lie. And they're using it via the narrative setting angle of private market assets, which is why they were trying to pass that little gay ass bill that would force all business owners that are not public to disclose every angle of their holdings, which is fucking illegal as fuck, unlawful as fuck. But because nobody has a clue, that shit is like a fucking golden secret, apparently. Because the fact that it can be even suggested and not shot down in a split second is everything that you need to know. Let's continue. Technology alone won't remove every barrier. Regulation and investor safeguards will remain essential. Technology, I'm going to just read this again. Technology alone won't remove every barrier. Regulation and investor safeguards will remain essential. Things that don't exist now are not necessary now, will apparently remain essential. But by lowering costs and complexity, tokenization can give more investors, more ways to diversify. Exactly what you need. Exactly what you need. If you're one of those people that thinks diversification makes sense, at some point you got to fucking realize you're just not tuned into the reality of that lie yet. And I'm saying that to just not disrespect you generally. Because it's fucking crazy to me how it's not obvious that everything that these people suggest is not a fucking lie. Like, it's obvious by now. Get in tune with the fucking program. It's crazy. There are early signs of progress. Tokens that represent real world traditional financial assets, stocks, bonds, and so on, And I've taken you guys to those type of websites before. Uh, let's go RWAZ. Right. And right now, the claim is 560,000 asset holders, 300 billion stablecoin value, 200 million stablecoin holders, for a total of 390 billion in assets. This is a distributed asset value, which is just stocks, bonds, and anything that's not a dollar representation in its pure digital form. So there is no market for you. I mean, this is all dollars. So you know, people talking about PDI and all these fucking stable coins. Like, you got to understand, you're dealing with morons that don't know any fucking thing. Period. It don't matter who the fuck they are. People that do not grasp the problem with trying to create stable coins where they're not needed, which is every fucking where. Y'all are the fucking problem. Because that's the main honeypot. Because it literally is a Ponzi scheme, just in digital form, perpetrated by government. I mean, I don't know how this shit isn't obvious. Just because motherfuckers want a fake dollar. It's crazy. There are early signs of progress, and I'm just going to read this shit again, that represent real world traditional financial assets remain a tiny share of global equity and fixed income markets, but are growing fast, blah, 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 up 300% in the past 20 months. I mean, none of that shit means anything. Because I already showed you $300 billion of the 320 is stablecoins. So there you go. Much of the early adoption is happening in the developing world where banking access is limited. So the point of this is to spread the use of fake dollars globally, essentially giving people no option but to comply because others won't accept anything else. Nearly 3/4 of crypto holders live outside of the West. I want you guys to know that I hadn't even read this. I only really got up to here. So funny, I had to stop and say, no, I got to read this while I stream because this is just too much. Much of the early adoption is happening in the developing world where banking access is limited. And they wrote that twice, or am I going crazy? I read that twice. Yes, I read that twice. Nearly 3/4 of crypto holders live outside the West. Meanwhile, the economies that built quote unquote modern finance, America, Britain, and the EU, are falling behind fast, at least when it comes to where the trading is happening. So there's more to this article that I don't have access to. Maybe I can find it real quick. Um, Let me see. I'll unshare the screen and then try to look for it. It's true that many of the companies best placed to lead the shift to a tokenized financial blah blah blah. So, as you guys can see, the setup is just the setup. They're just going to let you make the decision that you always make, which is the wrong one. I mean, why not? It hasn't failed yet. They literally don't have to do anything. I mean, think about it. Am I wrong? Unfortunately, I'm not. And, what's even funnier are people trying to use the system to defeat the system. Like, you can't get any dumber than that. You're never going to win because it's set up by design for you to fail. And that's just a simple fact of the matter. Let's see here. Nope. Not signing up and signing for a free trial. So that's pretty much all we got, guys. I mean, I don't know how much simpler it can be. Um, that's just all it is. You know, it's time to get your game right. It's time to get your mind right. And RWA is real world assets. For those that don't know. And yeah, I definitely did. No homo shit here. Not allowed. So everybody's about to really go through some fun stuff. Prepare yourselves, get your mind right, get your education up, because time is running out. Man, the clock don't give a fuck. Everybody have a good rest of your weekend. Holla at you. Peace.